All right, good evening. It's January 29th, 2024. I am glad to be here this evening and to share some time with you. We have a guest that's going to join us in a couple of minutes. Please hang on there. I wanted to just to take some time today to talk about and put up on the screen something we've talked about before, but I think it's always good to remind you about that conversation, which is about the whole person. And recognizing that there is at least 8 parts of you that we're always trying to satisfy. None is more important than the other. That our health is so very important. Our spirituality is very important. Our personal development, our finances, the environment that we live and work is important. Education and the information we have and are trying to acquire is important. That our opportunity to recreate and recreate ourselves is vitally important, as well as our family and friends. And each of those areas are often calling upon the other areas to make us whole. And that we need the other parts. They're intricately important to each other. And I think often we will sacrifice one for the other and forget that we need them all because that is all the different aspects of our life. And again, we need to embrace that it's about and, that it's not about or. It's about and the better we get at bringing the ands together, the more enriched life and experience we're going to have for ourselves and others. So again, I wanted you to keep that in mind, and you may want to take a quick picture of it off the screen, but just keep that in mind. So again, as Cheryl says, that she got it. It's about and, not or. But again, we want to keep that in mind as we live life. That our success is going to come because we're able to manage all the different ands that exist. An example is that you may be a mother and a wife and a sister and an aunt and a colleague. So there's a multitude of things that we are doing often. And again, our goal is to bring all of those ands together. So tonight we have a guest, and her name is Rachel, and she's going to join us so that we can have a conversation. So without further ado, Rachel, it's so good to have you join us this evening. So this weekend I was able to facilitate a workshop, and Rachel was one of the attendees at the workshop. So she was nice enough to join us today and to talk a little bit about herself. And I'll start off with asking her about the workshop and what she liked and maybe didn't like, and what the experience was like for her. And then we'll dive in a little deeper to Rachel. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me and inviting me.
Good. So as I said, we met for the first time this weekend at the workshop. Tell me, and again, the title of the workshop was Attaining Your Personal Best. We went over a lot of foundational concepts, and then people began putting together their own roadmap and talking about what that would look like, and working on putting together a 4M's plan, which is a plan that focuses on their mapping needs, their mental wellness needs, their mediation needs, and their mentorship needs, and what their plans are in those areas. So without further ado, Rachel, share what you liked, maybe what was challenging, but just what your experience was like this weekend.
I think it was an amazing opportunity to just be in a space with like-minded individuals, right? Learning about trauma is important, and also just bringing awareness, right? And I think there's not enough spaces like your space. So I was very grateful to be present and a part of it. What I loved about it was that you touched on each part that is like super important. I've been on a journey for a while, so for me, it definitely aligns with what I feel is working for me in my life. And I think that it's just really important that this awareness is brought up, because it's, like I said, minimal places where these real conversations are happening.
So talk to me a little about when you say trauma for Rachel, what does that mean?
Oh, trauma for me means something that has changed the way I view things, how I behave, how I think about things, my perception, sometimes a story based off of the truth.
Mhm.
It's really difficult sometimes when you're in a space trying to like overcome trauma. There's stories that you may tell yourself that it's really not the truth, it's really just my perspective, and I'm learning that, on this journey. So I think it's just really important to be able to differentiate what's real and what's not real. And at one point in my life, a lot of things I don't remember. I blocked out a lot of things. I created stories, right? Just because.
Let me ask you,
Sure.
Rachel. I think that's a very interesting phenomenon that you're sharing is about the created stories.
Mhm.
um, I don't think people, recognize how that sometimes plays in with trauma. So an example of my own experience with doing that was my mother died when I was 5 years old, and people would often ask me when I was older, what happened to your father? And I made up a story that my father heard that my mother passed away, and then he had a heart attack and he
Yeah.
passed away. Well, I don't know who my father is. I wouldn't know him if he walked in the room right now, but I just made up that story in my own mind and shared it with people like it was a true story. So, talk a little bit about, what your experience was with manufactured stories to deal with the trauma.
Sure. So I think that I'll share two situations. One situation was my father passing at a very young me being a very young age of HIV and AIDS, and that was like at the peak of AIDS, right? And how embarrassed you should be
Mhm.
by that. So I always shared, oh, my father's on a business trip, right? To my friends. He was never around. I didn't want to really share, even though my mother was divorced and was not with him, I still just never wanted to share what my father was going through, that I was visiting him in the hospital. I was slowly watching him die. I recognized that he was deteriorating before my eyes. But that was something that you just didn't want to share because you got the cooties back then, right? For sharing those things.
Sure.
So that was one of those things. And then as I had got older, one of the stories that I actually told was that my mother burned me,
Mm.
which was it was not true.
Wow.
I was ashamed that I burned myself.
Mm.
So I was self-mutilating at a young age, and when I would tell story as an adult, it sounds crazy, but because I was still in my mind like so ashamed of the fact that I did this to myself, even though it was 11 and 12 years old. I would
Mhm.
say my mother would do this when I was younger because I have these marks on my body still. So that was a story that I also told just because I was as an adult. When I
Wow.
tell you in my late 20s and 30s, I was still sharing that story. And that was just because I was very embarrassed and ashamed of what I did. And I guess naturally you just feel like I'm so stupid for doing something like that. But I was 11. You know what I mean? Like that's what 11-year-olds that deal with trauma sometimes how they show up. But
Mhm.
it's hard to and then how I actually made sense of it. I actually made sense of it this way. The reason I burned myself was because the trauma my mother caused
Mm.
me. Right. So that's how I made sense of it. Like my mother did do it, even though she did not do it. But mentally in my head, that's what made me do it.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that you've been on a road to make your life better. What
Mhm.
is that? What does that look like?
Oof. It's challenging. It seems confusing at times. It's messy at times. It's lonely at times. It's because you're facing everything that you don't want to face about yourself. And then you want to change and you want to transition into this your authentic self, because this is my authentic self. Today I'm sitting in front of you as my authentic self,
Mhm.
but prior to that I conformed a lot and I became something everybody needed me to be in order to be accepted or in order for me to feel like I was significant. So if you wanted, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
No, no, no. So if you wanted me, so when I was younger, if a gangbanger, okay, I'm a gangbanger, right? Oh, you want me to be a house mom? Okay, I'm Susie the homemaker. I was able to kind of adapt to all situations.
So what happened that said enough was enough? What was that moment like for you, or was it moments that got you to the point where you just realized, okay, enough is enough?
I think for me, being a mother at a very young age, I always had a moment of clarity, right? I always had these moments of clarity, and I tried to evolve. I've always been on that journey of searching. However, I guess when you don't face trauma, it chases you, and
Mm.
it shows up in just another home, same era,
But,
and you
but
experience the
very,
same things.
let me stop you there, because I think you
Sure.
said something very positive. You said that when you don't face trauma, it chases you.
Yeah,
Mm. That's interesting. That's interesting.
yeah.
But please continue on.
Yeah, so for me it was just I never really faced my truth. And I just put on a different hat, a different life every time I try to reinvent myself, but reinventing myself by still suppressing all of my experiences and really not being completely truthful with myself first and foremost, and really being ashamed. Like the shame really kept me kind of like in a prison in my mind, that I always ended up in the same situations. And the reality for me, it was like I had a nervous, I want to say I had a nervous breakdown, but I also like to say divine intervention, right? But I had a really bad breakdown, which kind of like gave me no choice. Like I don't know what came over me, but I was tired.
Mm.
I was tired of the roller coaster, and I was tired of living a lie.
Mm. Mm. And so, what came together for you? So you got to the point you were tired. Where did you go for help? What was available to you to tap into?
If I can be honest, I had received a DWI,
Mm.
right? And so I had to go to a program, right? And in this program, I was so ignorant because when I went to this program, I was disgusted with the fact that I was like around addicts,
Mm.
right? And as I sat in this room because I had to, not because I chose to, I eventually recognized that we're all the same and we just have different ways of dealing with life.
Mm.
And so at that moment, I just like started digging really deep, and I just needed to, so that's where I had the moment of like, wow, this is deeper than just me,
Mm.
right? I'm hearing me, but this is somebody that's addicted. I'm hearing me, and this is somebody that's this. I still have issues, but they just don't look the same,
Mm.
right? But we have the similar things. We have abandonment issues. We have trauma that from it might not look or it wasn't the same experience, but it we handle it the same.
Mm.
So when I was in there is when I really started digging deep, and then I just continued on the journey. After I was able to get rid of that situation, I still I still stood on my 10 toes, I would say, right? And pretty much said, okay, I know what I want to do with my life. I
Mm.
know what I want to do with my life, and I want to help people like me.
Wow. And so, what does that helping yourself and others look like?
Okay, so I work with an organization called True to Life, which is the anti-gun violence organization. I've been with them for 7 years. So I started with, and it's a part of the crisis management system within New York City.
Mm.
So I started as a volunteer there, and it looks like sharing the support that I never received.
Mm.
So, like, how you have brought this, I have been blessed to meet you and have this kind of being a part of this workshop. For
Mm.
me not to share some of the tools that you shared would be doing our people a disservice, right? So I am accountable for how I show up in life.
Mm.
I make sure that what I'm pouring into myself, I'm pouring into others. I
Mm.
do my best,
Mm.
rather.
Wow. So, we've talked a little bit about the past. I really want to spend some time talking about what's on the horizon for you in the future. What are you working on?
Um, okay, so right now I've been writing a book, I want to say for 8 years, 7 years.
Mm.
And the funny story is somebody had told me years ago, Rachel, you still write? And I'm like, she's like, I remember when she was a babysitter for my children. She said, I remember I used to come into your house and you had things written all over the place. Like, and I didn't remember this. But when I came here and I finally found like a sense of peace within myself, I tapped back into my creative side.
Mm.
So I've been writing for a while. And so this book is really it's going to be poetry. It's going to be storytelling poetry,
Mhm.
but underneath the poetry is going to be my state of mind, where I was at and how I got there in that moment. Like
Okay.
what feelings and thoughts brought me to those places.
What you may call the background.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Wow.
Yeah.
Good. And I think we talked a little bit about the title of the book, and just remind me of what you're working on as a title at this point.
Well, at first, at first it was scattered thoughts, right?
All
And
right.
then with your coaching, right, which I'm very grateful for, it was thought to be scattered and then slashed out with resolved thoughts.
That's right.
And the reason for the scattered thoughts for me is because at times when I read my writing, even being here, when I was in a good place, it was all over the place,
Mm.
but I could expound on why it was all over the place.
Yeah.
I can expound why it sound the way it sound, because even in the healing process, so basically the chapters are going to look like this for me. Chapter is going to be trauma, transition, growth,
Hmm.
and that's what it's going to kind of be broken down to.
Good. And so, talk with me a little bit. We have a depiction that I'm gonna bring up here. Sorry. So talk to me about like what are your plans when it comes to your health? I see you're talking about your plans for possibly when it comes to what you're going to do to educate yourself and others. But I want to just ask you what are some of your other goals in some of the other areas. So,
Mm.
and these are no priority order. We started out today talking about the whole person and wanting to make sure we have activities that are going on in each of these areas. So, do you have any ideas of the things that you want to be working for in these areas?
Oh yeah, I definitely do. The biggest one for me would be finance, and I think education.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. I do well with budgeting and things of that nature. And my credit is finally amazing, right? After a very long time. However, financially, I want to evolve. I want financial freedom eventually, God willing.
Hmm. Okay. Some of the other areas when it comes to your health, how are
Oh,
you?
health, I'm extremely proactive
Mhm.
with, and not just the physical aspects, but making sure that because a lot of times we women, right, and some men as well, and men as well rather, we do not take our health as we don't make it a priority, whether it's we'll work out, but we won't go to the doctor and we won't check ourselves out. So I definitely incorporate all of those things.
Mhm.
I exercise about 3 to 4 times a week,
Mhm.
and I'm very consistent with that. That is a part of my lifestyle. It's not even like it doesn't even feel like a job anymore. It's just what I do in the morning.
So another area here, we don't have time to go through all of them, but I'd like
Sure.
to, when it comes to your family and friends, what's on the horizon there for you?
I think for family, there's definitely real challenges, right? Because like I said, I have to be accountable for how I've showed up in the last 8 years. When I say transition has been messy, it has been extremely messy. So I definitely want to work on that part of it. Um, However, I'm okay right now because I'm still working on me. And I think that there's always a time, right? So, stillness, like you said the other day, is a good place to be.
Mhm. Good. Last but not least, education. Do you mind sharing with us how far you went and the formal
Sure.
education and
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. So my level of education, um, I got my GED. However, my highest level of education, which in the Department of Education was only eighth grade,
wow.
because from my age on, the things that took place. Yeah,
Yeah. And do you have any thoughts or any need to take that education any higher? Do you feel?
I do. In my and but I don't know if I'm a. I know I love to learn. I love to learn. I love to definitely be in spaces where I am challenged. However, I'm not sure if the how do I say it, my job, right, and school, am I going to be overwhelmed? I don't want to just live to exist.
Sure. Let me do a little plug for academia.
Yeah.
Um, there are so many options these days that are available to you that are in bricks and mortar, which we, campuses, as well as online. And then you can also determine your pace. And you've had a very lived experience, and there are lots of places that will give you credit for that lived experience.
Mm,
So you're a
yeah.
customer, and they have a product to sell. So there are just so many places out there that I think would give you a running start and be very supportive, because you're the kind of student that they want to have, because you're out and about and making a difference in the world. They'd want that to be the case. So I would encourage you to not think about what can't be, but think about what can be. And again, there's a place out there for you that would be happy to have you and would work with you. And sometimes they're one of a kind places, but I would encourage you to, especially if you feel there's any value and that would add anything to.
Absolutely.
And Selena is saying here um, that she's an RN now. She said, "Yes, I did the lived experience, and I wrote about it, and they gave me 20 credits."
Wow.
All right, so that's one person's experience.
Wow.
And Andrea tells you, "Let's get that degree, Rachel." So she said that twice. Uh, and these are both people I know, and one
Yeah.
and so they can help you. And so it's not like they're making a suggestion for something that can't be done. Um, so keep in mind that you're one of the things I try to remind people is you're on your own, but you're not alone, and we just got to find those others that we can be in fellowship to help us out and give us a helping hand. So Rachel, as we get ready to wrap up this evening, I thank you so much for sharing so much of what you shared. But is there anything else that you want to talk about or mention, or just give words of encouragement to other people who may be in a similar circumstance, but just experiencing life as you are now as well?
Sure. I would say look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and really work on you. Nobody else. Like, the reality for me is this, right? Everybody else matters, but if you don't matter first, nobody can matter.
Hmm.
And
Say that,
that's what I would say.
say
Just work on you.
say that one more time.
But what I said was look in the mirror
Hmm.
and work on you.
Hmm.
Other people matter, but if you don't matter first, nobody else matters.
I don't know if you can see what the screen says. You see what it says?
Rachel has flair for phrases. Thank you.
That's neat. So the person you spoke to that helped you to get on tonight. So,
Oh,
so she's patting herself on the back as well. Um, so I'm just trying to see if there's any other comments there. So again, Cheryl McLeod says to you, that's Andrea's sister. You're not alone. You saw her this weekend. So I think everybody's rooting for you, Rachel. And some of the people had said they're ready for the book. So you have like 3 book sales, as you can promise the publisher. Out of the 15,000 they want you to sell, we got
that's,
3.
yeah, right.
But we got 3 down pat. So
That's the challenge I'm having as well. Dr. Nathaniels, I know that there's a gift for publishing, right? And I know that I'm not capable. I wasn't blessed with that gift, right?
you
So
don't.
I'm trying to be mindful of how I decide I want to do what I'm doing. And I also have to make sure I have those means, because I don't know what that cost either.
Yeah. And there's so many options out there now to get it done and to get it published and be legitimate. Just the part that I think people have to keep in mind, if you want the book to be reviewed by other people formally, you can't self-publish. So you really have to have a publisher so that you can get other, and that's often is that review is what gets the word out and gets it shared. So just keep that in mind. And again, there's so many different um, platforms. And what I've learned to do is when I see a book that's similar to a book I'm looking to write, just turn it over and read who the publisher is, and then reach out because they've already done it. They already have that poetry book or whatever. Yeah, just try to find someone who's already done it and reach out to them and say, hey, what do you think? And I will definitely get a couple of the books that I've seen. One of my colleagues at work had just published a book, so I'll find out who that publisher was. But a lot of times it's just about research and just taking some time to realize you're on your own, but you're not alone. Just find out who's done some of those things that you're looking to do. And often we're just one connection away from success, and we just have to. And the way we do it, again, is by not being silent. No more secrets. And as you've added very nicely to that, to those two, is the trilogy of no more shame. So, and again, I think you're a great testament to having no secrets, no silence, and no more shame. So thank you so much, Ms. Rachel, for talking with us this evening, and we'll stay in touch and help you along the way with your journey. Thank you for attending this weekend. And again, I hope this weekend serves you well now and as well in the future. And we'll stay in touch with each other.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for this platform.
Sure. Thank you.
Help a lot of people.
Thank you. Very good. Take care. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for this evening. I think this is one of the more richer shows that we've had, and hopefully what Ms. Rachel had to share, you can also benefit from it and connect it to other people and share the video and the link with others who may benefit from it. So again, thank you, Bobby, for saying the kind words that you shared, and Selena as well. We look forward to seeing you next Monday at the same time, and bring along a couple of friends, and then hopefully we can get some people to call in and ask some questions and have a sense of dialogue. So again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful week until next Monday.